Cotton?
Levisioth?
Hey, dude, how's life in Gamora?
Oh, quite pleasant.
Good, good. Are there any lava ponds up for sale right now there?
Excuse me?
Well, I heard you were looking for monsters from Frontier, and
Oh, yes, of course you are invited. Damn it.
Ladies, gentlemen, and monsters of all ages, welcome to a discussion about monsters. Most people's favorite part of the Monster Hunter series as a whole. Not just any monsters, though. Today we'll be talking about some monsters from Monster Hunter Frontier, whose servers closed down a couple of years ago now, and as such, it almost feels like it would be wasteful not to include some of the magical monster designs and concept from that game in a main series Monster Hunter game in the future, the same way that we bring back returning monsters from the main series games. They of course still need to at the very least fit the aesthetic of the situation, and with that said, let's talk about my personal nominations. For this specific entry, the top 5 Frontier monsters to add to Monster Hunter Sunbreak. With this expansion looming above us greatly, there seemed no better time. Before we drop into the list itself, please leave a like if you like the video. It really does wonders for us when you do. Subscribe and hit the notification bell to never miss another video, and of course, tell me, what is your favorite flavor of ice cream? Without further ado, let's begin with
Number 5.
Every rose has its thorn, just like every night has its dawn.
Espinas.
Okay, so this one I might struggle a bit to put into the right words, but my brain draws a solid connection between this monster's very rose-like aesthetic and the knightly aesthetic that we expect to be prevalent in Sunbreak due to the word knight literally being used to describe hunters in the land that we will be going to. I can't really explain why, but the idea of a full-plate armored fantasy knight fighting an Espinas makes so much sense in my head. I guess it just sort of fits into a very Western dragon type of concept, where just one specific aspect of nature taking form as a vicious beast, in this case a flower now showing its thorns. As far as the combat goes, this thing is sort of interesting, like a Monoblos and a Rathian fused together, and some interesting secondary changes made as well, such as replacing fireballs with poison paralysis balls. And while I do think that fighting this beastie would be wonderful, really it is almost entirely that aesthetic match that is within my head between the knights and the Rose Dragon, which is mostly why this one is here on this list, and down at number 5, below something that I'm sure some of you will question at
Number 4.
This walrus.
Pokaradon.
Now, it really isn't anything unusual for me to like a bit of a lower tier monster, so anyone who has seen me rating monsters before should not be surprised that this fucking walrus seal dude is something that I absolutely adore. Like, regardless of anything past that, I just want this monster because I love these types of animals in real life, and that's that. The fight is not particularly unique, unfortunately, though that isn't unusual for a low tier monster by any means. For a low tier monster though, it's not bad. His main uniquenesses are the ability to slide a bit on the ground, almost like a Lagambi. He also claps his hands together loud enough to stun anyone near him, and then pounces on them, which is just an awesome little move. And he also tears up the ground with his tusks to make life a little bit harder for you as the hunter. Unfortunately, he does have a little bit of an overlap with Royal Ludroth's moveset, given that he also shoots water balls and is a Leviathan, so they've got some similar movements. But he is not only unique enough, in my mind, but he's also incredibly fitting in the game as a low tier monster from the region that we will probably be visiting. I personally would love to see this guy. I mean, he feels like a natural friend of another clapper already in base Rise, Tetranodon, who just claps your fucking face. I could totally imagine Pokaradon and Tetranodon in a quest working together against the hunter, working real effectively together too. Maybe they got some teaming up moves all together like a duo, all teamwork like. Regardless, I like walruses, okay? And seals. And I know he's a walrus, but the clapping is very much a seal thing, so I'm gonna keep saying seal when I bring him up. So you know what? Arf arf, I do what I want.
Number 3.
These women have a mysterious magnetic effect on the male members of my crew.
Ray and Lolo Gugarf.
This one may be surprising to anyone that has heard me talk about Frontier monsters in the past, because while I have expressed my love for these two monsters and this fight on many occasions, I have always said that they just wouldn't fit in the main series. But that was because the main series games didn't have any kind of magnetism in them then, and these would definitely not be the first monsters to be put in the game with magnetism to introduce it to the main series. It would just be a very strange and eccentric pairing to bring the idea of a whole new element into the eyes of the masses. However, these days with Rise, we actually have magnetism as part of the in-game description of the final boss, and thus it is confirmed to be something that monsters are now capable of, which really sort of removes the main barrier for Ray and Lolo. So let's talk about why I want them. Well, they are essentially duo wrestlers who are oppositely magnetically charged, so occasionally they just bounce off of each other. They work in tandem, their moves are often combos between the two of them, and aesthetically, they are like 80s glam rock stars, and I think it's just totally kick-ass, honestly. They may not necessarily fit the aesthetic that Sunbreak has so far, but they aren't incredibly far off. Their fight is awesome, and I can only imagine it being made even better with the Hunter having wire bugs. Magnetism was brought in Rise, so why not expand on it within Sunbreak? Essentially, wire bugs are our own magnetic attraction, where we throw out the point that we'll be sucked up to, which is a really weird way to describe wire bugs, but you know what I mean, okay? I just think it'd be really awesome to have these creatures as a way of expanding upon magnetism, while also having a lot of fun with creatures that we get to fight.
Number 2.
Get the fire hose! Get the fire hose!
Kuria Domosu.
Okay, hear me out. I have always loved the origin species from Frontier as a general concept. The idea of these super powerful ancient versions of a monster that we never see anymore because they evolved out of it, like dinosaurs turning into tiny little raptor birds. And of the origin species, my favorite is easily this one, Big Papa Gravios, who instead of being incredibly fire-based, is incredibly water-based, full of very Baroth-looking pipe-type nozzles that are actually all just totally full of water that he can shoot out in every direction, either like mortar shots from his back, from his face as a breath, from his tail to make him go faster. You name it, he can shoot it out of his tubes. He looks gorgeous too, covered in moss, which is something that I notably love in monsters personally, considering Duramboros, who is covered in moss, and Yamasukami, who is covered in trees, are two of my favorite monsters of all time. And then, in the cherry on top, that we actually do expect Gravios to be in Sunbreak, don't we? We have Basarios, and Basarios is just young Gravios, so it makes sense to see older Basarios in Master Rank. What if instead we just got really old Gravios? Guria Damosu, spitting water everywhere like he's stuck between a rock and a wet place. I want him, okay?
Number 1.
Swordfish, I love them too.
Enarupatisu.
What do you want from me? Look, he's a goddamn swordfish, a carpenter shark aesthetic in dragon form, and that is incredible to me. He's an ice monster, which is already a bonus to me because honestly, most things that used fire I just find sort of boring at this point because everything uses fire, so ice is quite welcome, just like most elements that aren't fire. But even cooler than that is while you are killing him and his health gets lower, he will eventually start to add dragon element attacks into the moveset, by which I mean he will augment the attacks that he already does with dragon element to make them fucking crazy, because he has a little bit of hidden power inside of him that he can only unleash when he's in great danger, likely due to the cost to his own body to use those attacks against you. He has icy backflips, he has shark-like dig attacks almost like a Zamtrios do, and he also, well, you know, makes giant geysers shoot out of the ground, so there's that too. His fight is extravagant as all hell, and I love it, and I love his aesthetic, and I can totally see a Enarupatisu being added as just an extra monster into the Frost Islands. A bonus boy to go alongside Zamtrios, who will definitely be in Sunbreak, okay? Right? Capcom? Please? Hopefully? Look, a bitch can dream, can't they? Alright everyone, I've been Cotton Dinosaur, and this has been my list of the 5 monsters from Monster Hunter Frontier that I believe would be excellent choices to return in Sunbreak, the upcoming expansion to Monster Hunter Rise. Do you agree with my choices, or do you think I should have talked about the shape-shifting wolf monster who is essentially a werewolf? What other Frontier monsters do you think would be amazing to fight in a main series Monster Hunter game? Like if you liked the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world our stage is, Goodbye.